Hey folks, how are we doing? Brendan here from Bluelight, going live for you on the Bluelight Facebook page. I hope you're able to join me this evening. If you're watching this on the replay and you've no idea who Brendan is, well, I've been helping people just like you to succeed in the police recruitment process now for over a decade. A good 13,000 plus people are in the police as a result of my support. And for 26 years now, I've been coaching and supporting people to succeed in promotion boards and specialist interviews. I was a police officer for 28 years and took a keen interest in coaching and mentoring about halfway through my career. So it's been awesome so far. A total of 37 years now in the police sector, and still loving every moment of it. So the title of this particular session, why you should get rid of this, the competency and values framework. Honestly, this is not going to help you. Why? Well, I'm going to give you an example of something that occurred last night in one of the final interview webinars. This is where I run a 1 to 2 hour, this one was actually over 2 hours webinar for a select group of people who are on my interview course with the webinars option. And so I ran quite a long session. We covered quite a lot of stuff around direct entry detective issues. And then we wandered into the area of good old-fashioned tell me about a time when type questions. So the one that we took a look at, that one of my clients had a go at, was, can you tell me about a time when you've had to make a difficult decision, where you've had to account for that decision to others? This could also be worded as, can you tell me about a time when you've had to analyze information from a range of sources in order to make a difficult or challenging decision? You could also be asked, can you tell me about a time when you've had to make a decision when you weren't in possession of all the facts? Now, these are all possible questions around ultimately making difficult decisions. And so the thing that confused my client last night is they kept saying, so which of the competency and values is this from? And I kept saying, stop, just leave it. Leave the CVF alone. This will just confuse you. It's just going to confuse you. I mean, what is more confusing than this? The good old-fashioned, the good old wheel of confusion there. You know, it's just not going to help you, is it? I mean, it's written in a language which is just confusing to start with. When I studied a master's in education during my time in the police, where I focused on personnel evaluation systems. This is my old world. I was on the Standards and Qualifications Steering Group, the national one, for 2 years, from 2000 to 2002, where they were looking at formulating standards and qualifications. Competency frameworks. We never envisioned that it would be anything like as complicated as this, and as confusing as this. So why do you need to bin the CVF? Well, last night I asked my client, so which of the competencies and values do you believe that this is from? And she thought long and hard about it and then said integrity, and then told me about a difficult or challenging decision that she'd had to make, where she had to demonstrate that she was doing the right thing in difficult or challenging circumstances, even when no one was watching, even when she didn't have to. And that's pretty much the definition of integrity. But you tell me now, what do you think? Difficult decisions, which competency or value is it from? Because I know there's quite a few of you watching now. Let's do some shout outs to Grace, Vicky, Jack, Liam, Laura, Elle, Eddie, Cameron, Emma, and others who are joining me now. So for those of you who are here watching now, go on, share with me, which competency or value is this from? Because I see it all the time in the Facebook group. By the way, if you're not a member of the Facebook group, there's a link below if you're watching this on the recording. And if you're not a member of the Bluelight Facebook group and you're watching this live, please ask in the comments and I'll send you a link later on. This is almost 20,000 now people in the Facebook group that is there to help support you through the police recruitment process. Eddie's saying, it's all of them. I was there. Eddie, it's not all of them though, is it? It's not all of them. Go on, for everyone else, tell me, share with me, which of the competencies, which of the values is making difficult decisions? Which one is it from? As in a Facebook group, people are often asked the question, so often ask questions in the Facebook group. So has anyone got any advice for my interview? Got my interview coming up, and people will say, just make sure you've got an answer for each one of the competencies and each one of the values. It's the worst advice ever. Why? Share with you, and I'll share it with you in a moment. Laura's saying innovative and open-minded, which it's not. I'm sorry, Laura, it's not. It's not. Evelyn Yellers coming to join us. Alice coming to join us. Come on, which one do you think it is? It's confusing, isn't it? Jordan, which one do you think the question is related to? Tell me about a time when you made a difficult decision, and variations of that. Which competency or value is that from? Because if you're focusing on a CVF, you'll start thinking about what behaviours are they looking for. I challenge any of you to remember all the behaviours in each one of the competencies and values anyway. I mean, like I said, I geek out on this stuff and I can't remember them all. Fran is saying we analyse critically. Hey, getting close, getting close. Why is Fran getting close? Well, can I share with you? If you look at the value of impartiality, it talks about making decisions. Let me dig it out for you. I make fair and objective decisions using the best available evidence. Does that not sound a little bit like you've had to gather information from a variety of sources in order to make a difficult decision? Integrity, we've already talked about that. If you are demonstrating courage and doing the right thing, even in challenging situations, it doesn't mention the D word, decisions, but you do have to make a difficult decision when you challenge someone's inappropriate behaviour or decide to do that right thing. It's a decision to do the right thing. So my client was right. It is integrity. Transparency. I ensure my decision-making rationale is clear and considered so it's easily understood by others. There you go, there's the D word again. So that's 3 of the 4 values talks about decision-making. We then stroll on through the different competencies until we come to, we analyse critically. What does it say there? It talks about I weigh up the pros and cons of possible actions, thinking about potential risks and using this thinking to inform our decisions. So which question is this one? Which competency or value is decision making from? It's from all of those. So how on earth are you going to be able to answer the question when it could be from any of those? What we looked at last night was just completely binning this. Bin it. It's not going to help you. What they're looking for is for you to answer the question in a structured and detailed way, which shows authenticity and an emotional connection. What do I mean by that? Well, another client of mine last night demonstrated it perfectly. He gave an answer about a value, actually. This all stems from one of the questions that you might get asked, which is, tell me what values you believe, or what one value you believe is most important to police officers. And this client said selflessness. So my next question was, tell me about a time when you've demonstrated that value then. Now the values don't have to be from the CVF, and it was great that you picked selflessness. Another client last night talked about compassion. This is awesome, because this is coming from the heart. This is what they believe in. Not necessarily you going, now which are the 4 values again? There's integrity, impartiality, there's transparency, and what's that other one? Oh yeah, public service. So those are the 4 values that I feel are important. That's not going to work, is it? The interviewer is going to look at you and think, yeah, great, you can remember the CVF, big deal. No, these clients were talking about compassion, selflessness. And so my client last night gave an example of when he'd demonstrated selflessness. It was an okay answer. It was all right. We needed to improve it though. And so I asked him, first of all, about more detail. We needed to put more detail in. So he had a bit of a structure, the SALCU structure. Little bits of it there, we can improve on that. More detail, how he actually did the action part. But it's only when I asked him questions about, so what were the real challenges? What didn't go to plan? That's your authenticity. You being authentic enough to say, this was challenging, this was difficult, didn't quite work out for me. Didn't work out how I planned. That's what they want to hear. The emotional side, I asked him the question, so when you first came across this individual, this was about him helping to support someone who was vulnerable, how did you feel? And he told me how he felt back then. And his answer was congruent with his non-verbal communication. So I really believed him because he was talking from the heart, and I could tell he was talking from the heart because his non-verbal communication, his face was congruent with the phrases he was using to describe his feelings. And then we moved into, how did you feel at the end of it? And he talked about the satisfaction, where is it? I wrote it down somewhere. Anyway, he talked about his feelings at the very end of it. And again, his face was congruent with the feelings he was describing. This is what I mean when I talk about answering the question in a structured way, detailed, authentically, and emotional. It's a lot to include. But for most of you, you've got between 45 minutes and an hour for your interview. You're going to get asked several questions. Do the math. Each question needs to be 5 minutes or more. Just do the simple math. So your answers can be that detailed, and that's what we focused on last night. It was interesting that my client who talked about selflessness said, do you know, I've failed a previous interview, and they were talking to me after the interview, after they pretty much made their mind up I'd failed, and asking me questions, and they said to me, why didn't you talk like this in the interview? Why didn't you talk like this in the interview? And he was talking authentically from the heart. But they'd already marked him. They couldn't go back and do it again. Then they asked him the question, were these just rehearsed answers that you gave us? His answer, yeah. What had he done? He'd got an answer for each competency and for each value. And they saw through it. And they failed him. They failed him. So what are they looking for? They're looking for people who can join their team. They're looking for people who can fit in. You using a load of big phrases in the CVF and a load of pre-rehearsed answers is just not going to work. What they're looking for is you demonstrating a structured and detailed approach in an authentic way and demonstrating an emotional connect. So you might be thinking, well, how can I prepare for an interview then? Well, you would need to know about the sort of questions that you're going to ask. But as opposed to having a question bank, what I thought we could do is have an experience bank. What do you think of that, hey? An experience bank. So have a bank of experiences that you can utilise to answer questions. Is that making sense? By the way, give me some loves and likes if you like this. If this is making sense, please do either comment, love or like it. Press that love or like a button because Facebook loves it. I love it when you do that. At least I know people are listening to me. Is this making sense? Comment on this, even if you're watching this on the replay. Comment, comment, comment. I always look at the comments. I always do my best to reply to them. And let's do some shout outs. And then what I'm going to do, as opposed to talking about a question bank, I'm going to talk about a bank of experiences that you can use to develop your answers to questions, so we've not got that falling into that CVF trap. I've got an answer for each one of the competencies. No, please don't do that. So a few shout outs again, and please do ask questions, folks. Steve, Adam, Ryan, Keith, Michael, Andrea, Damo, Abby, Sai, John, Dan, David. Oh, it's awesome to have you all on board, folks. So many names I recognise as well. MP, Zach, and Fran. And Fran's saying, that's what I did for my interview. I wrote down a lot of events and experiences and then remembered those and applied those to the questions they asked. Beautiful, Fran, beautiful. This is the way to do it. So the sort of bank of experiences that you need to have, I'd expect you to have. Think about times when you've worked with others to solve a problem, worked with others on a task, because policing is about teamwork. Look at times when you've had to make difficult decisions. Not big decisions in your life, but difficult decisions. I talk a lot about that in my course and in the webinars. A time when you've had to overcome an obstacle to achieve something. It's all about resilience. I know what you're going to say, there's no competency called resilience. Somewhere in there it talks about being resilient. And by the way, sometimes the questions bear no resemblance to the CVF. I've seen the feedback from hundreds of people over the years, and I look at the feedback and think that bears no resemblance to the actual competency that you're meant to be asking questions about. The interviewers understand this as much as you do. I know that, I work with them. I've got an in-force advancement group where I support people who are going for promotion boards, all the way up to superintendent. They do the interviews with you. They don't understand it neither. So a time when you've had to change the style of your communication to meet the needs of others. A time when you've had to plan and prioritise for a challenging task, or you've had to plan and prioritise and you've not been able to complete all of the things that you hoped to complete. What did you leave out and why did you leave it out? That sort of thing. Tell me about a time when you've taken responsibility for a task or a problem. Tell me about a time when you've supported others through change, or when you've had to undergo a process of change. How did you manage it? Tell me about a time when you've helped to support someone who was vulnerable and struggling with something. Tell me about a time when you've challenged someone's inappropriate behaviour. A time when you've delivered a high level of service. A time when you've learnt from an experience, you've experienced something, it didn't go to plan, and you've reflected and learnt from that experience. A time when you've had to deal with a conflict situation where people may have been in conflict with you or with each other. So if you've got examples of all of those things, I don't think there's many questions they can ask you that you're not going to be able to answer. So forget the question bank. Let's think about a bank of experiences that we can just develop those experiences to answer the questions. And remember what my client said last night? They actually challenged him at the end of the interview that he failed last time. He's going to pass it this time. But they asked him, these were rehearsed questions, weren't they? Yeah. You were going to give us the answer to some of those questions. No matter what we asked you, you were struggling to connect the answer that you had to the question we had. Yeah, right, that's why we're failing you. Like I said, they said to him, well, we should talk like this to us during the interview, but you didn't, and that's why we failed you. So there you go, folks. That's why we need to bin the CVF. Now, if you're doing the online assessment centre, a little bit different. That's about game playing, that's about ticking boxes, and they tell you which competencies and values you're going to get assessed against. So for the online assessment centre, no, we're just going to play the tick box game there, friends. We are not going to focus on being a structured and detailed, authentic and emotional self, because really it's not ticking the boxes for them there. It's so formulaic, the online assessment centre. This is more about that face-to-face final interview. And actually Katie's just asking a question about that. Can you use some experiences prepared for the CBI? I know where you're coming from there, Katie. Yes, you can. So you can use some of the examples that you used in your competency-based interview in stage 2 of the online assessment centre. Of course you can use those in your final interview, but I'd be looking for more of a sort of emotional, authentic connection with the interviewers, you sharing more about what didn't go to plan, the difficulties you had, how you felt about those difficulties, how you overcame them, how you felt at the end of the process. Because remember, you're not there to tell them that everything you touch turns to gold, because it doesn't. Because I'll think one of two things: either one, you're lying and that didn't happen, or two, it just wasn't challenging enough because it worked out perfectly for you. I want to hear about something that was challenging and difficult for you. So that's why we focus on those sort of questions and delivering those sort of answers where we are authentic and we are emotional in our answers. If you want to find out more, come and join those webinars. We hold them every week. It's where we get to practice. We put all of the knowledge and understanding from the interview course into practice. It'd be great if some of those of you who are watching this could actually comment and let me know what you think of those courses, those webinars we do. I know there's some alumni watching, probably trying to think, how can I keep adapting all of this and focus on my learning so that I can ace my specialist board, ace my promotion board. Because I know some of you are actually in the police looking, I'm not going to say which ones, but I know some of you are. So there you go, folks. There you go. Unless anyone's got any questions, but please do comment, please do love, like, say something, because at least I know that you're listening and it's of worth this and it's of value. I know some of you have turned up, so fingers crossed it is. And there's some loves and likes coming out, so thank you for those of you who have loved and liked what I've talked about there. And if you want to find out more, then just ask in the comments or join the Facebook group, and you'll see me post there just about every day. You can just send me a message. I get so many messages every day. I spend half my life on Facebook. It's awesome. It's work. It's work. It's not social media. It's work media for me. It's work. I get to help support so many of you, and it means so much to me to get those messages every day from those of you saying, I passed, I couldn't have done it without you. Well, you probably could have done it without me. I'll show you the way. You've got to do the hard work. You've got to do the hard work. And I'll end on this as a final message here from Eddie, saying, definitely worth the courses, just about to start preparing the final interview stage, and it gave me a good foundation and understanding. Awesome, Eddie, awesome. I'll see you at the next one. All right, folks, the next webinar, by the way, because you get to attend unlimited ones, unlimited. Keith is saying, hola, buenas noches. He knows I've been in Spain for the past week. Yeah, cat sitting. It wasn't a holiday. I was cat sitting for my uncle. Always valuable, your knowledge, Brendan. Thank you, Keith. That's a great place to end. Awesome to have you all on board this evening on this Facebook Live. I must do these lives more. There's so much experience that's worth talking about from these webinars and one-to-ones. And I love sharing it with you as well. And come and join them. Come and join them. I'll catch up with you soon, folks. Bye-bye for now.